Welcome to the Harper Tech Academy. Today we're going to talk about legislative requirements to work in the hospitality industry. We've done a lot of work with work health and safety legislation and food safety legislation. Now we're going to go beyond that and actually look at some of the other rules and regulations that we need to actually look at for working in hospitality. All right, let's get into it. So we've got a jam-packed video today. So we're actually going to do a short revision on the Food Act and regulation. We're going to have a look at the Australia and New Zealand food standards codes of practice, which we haven't done before. Then we're going to look at responsible service of alcohol, followed by the responsible conduct of gambling. And then we're going to actually have a look at Australia consumer law and what that actually means for hospitality. Okay, it's revision time. Let's actually have a look. Food Act 2003, you remember, an act, a regulation, and the code of practice, and they all plug in. So the Food Act is very much about the why. Then we actually look at the food regulations, tells us those key rules and how we actually do that. And also ANZFS, the Australia and New Zealand food standards, actually has a lot of rules, and we're actually going to delve a bit deeper in the next part of this presentation. Remember that the codes of practice actually help us understand the why and the how in general language. So we're actually going to have a look at the codes. So the first one's the general food standards. So remember, we're talking about the Australia and New Zealand food standards, and that's what it tells them what can be put in, labeling and packaging, and that kind of thing. The next one is the food product standards, and this is more about their compositional requirements for meat, eggs, fish, and alcoholic beverages, and how much of different ingredients that you can actually put in. Next is the food safety standards. Now we know this very well from the food safety legislation, the food handlers requirements, the training required for certain positions, and food temperature in fridges, and a whole range of other things. Now the interesting one that most people don't realize is that the primary production standards, so this is about the farmers, so the wheat farmers, vegetables, the livestock, fish markets, chicken, and the rules and regulations around how you produce your cow, how you produce and grow your cows or your pigs, and how much hormone or how you feed them. In the fisheries, it's about the size of fish or prawns and how much you can bring in. This is all run by the codes of practice from the Australia and New Zealand food standards. Be aware that the food safety standards and the primary production standards are only here in Australia, not in New Zealand. They have a different set of rules. It's interesting to note that responsible service of alcohol and the liquor legislation have been around in New South Wales for over 100 years. It works on harm minimisation associated with the use of alcohol. In 2013, the New South Wales government spent over $1 billion in alcohol-related abuse, and there's a whole range of different areas we'll talk in class as to why. So in 1996, they changed the liquor laws, and this is when the responsible service of alcohol came in. And it really, their laws to regulate the control and sale and consumption of alcohol. Also, penalties can be up to $11,000 and or 1 year in prison. So they're quite strict in New South Wales and across Australia. So let's have a look at what they regulate. In New South Wales, we are the RSA, so the Responsible Service of Alcohol Training. Each venue must be licensed to actually serve alcohol. Everyone who takes up or serves alcohol must be over 18. It also regulates in New South Wales liquor laws as to what you can buy and what you can't buy, regulating trading hours and businesses, and can actually shut down businesses. So the King's Cross lockout after 3 o'clock is a way that they do that, and penalties and fines for people who are not doing the right thing. We've talked about different sectors and departments in hospitality, and gambling is one of those big ones. So very similar to the responsible service of alcohol is that harm minimisation of minimising the risk or harm to people. The RCG legislation, it requires all secretaries or registered clubs and hoteliers with gaming machines to have licenses. It also looks at the lottery, so the state lottery, and every state has one, and looking at casinos. It's interesting, in New South Wales in the last census, 60% or 66% of the population admitted to enjoying gambling. Australians per capita or per year gamble 11 billion. That's quite amazing. That's quite a big industry, and we need to make sure that we manage the ethics of this industry so that people understand. So this particular legislation looks at the training for responsible conduct of gambling. It regulates gambling across New South Wales. Now, people think casinos, but you have pubs, clubs with these slot machines. They regulate the whole thing. They also license, so for you to have these types of machines, you have to be licensed. You're under a very strict set of rules, and you can be shut down. We actually look at statutory signage and advertising. So there may be advertising in a casino, and if you need help with a gambling addiction, here's where you go. And also managing ethical concerns. For instance, maybe a casino's inducing, bringing people in and giving them food and alcohol, or colluding with other sources to strip as much money away and not being completely ethical. So a very big area of hospitality, and it's really important that we understand this area. Australian consumer law is actually, some laws are federal, and then basically each state interprets them into their own laws. So here in New South Wales, we have the Fair Trading Amendment Act of 2010, which was a change from the Fair Trading Act 1987. So it's basically administered by two different bodies. At the Australian level, it's the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission, ACCC, and you may have heard of those on sort of a current affair and that type of thing. In New South Wales, it's the New South Wales Fair Trading. So let's actually have a look at the different types of things they look at. They look at the buying of goods and services, and if you're buying, say, a bag of chips, that you have 150 grams, or exactly what they've said. Online shopping guides, there's rules. Resolving complaints from people who feel like they've been ripped off, and this is more generalised. It's not just in hospitality. If you want to start a business in New South Wales, you actually have to go to Fair Trading and you register there, and ensuring product safety with like kids, car seats, all these types of things is what they do. And also with their codes of practice, they talk about how you can help businesses keep up to date. Privacy Act 1988 is a very important part of legislation. It's not just about hospitality. In essence, it's looking after personal information and the way it's actually used. So collection and handling of information, medical records, credit records, making sure that it doesn't get into the wrong hands. Security and privacy for personal mail, email and telephones, and the rules and regulations around that. Also looks at how much intrusion should you get sitting at home, and how much intrusion should you get from other businesses when you're at work. This has huge ramifications for hospitality generally because we are a service industry. I bet you your head's spinning right now. So many new legislations. We are going to actually do some work in class to really make sure that those notes are really tight, but this understanding of this overall holistic view of hospitality, that there are not just food safety in WHS, there are other laws that we need to abide by. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.